Where should you go to learn? And specifically for lessons, should you be going to a multi-instrumentalist studio? Should you be going to someone who specializes in piano or voice? Like, hopefully they're not mixing the two. Or do you not go to a studio at all? Do you learn with apps or YouTube videos? What's your take on that?
I think I'm gonna sound boring here, but it's the same thing. It's do what you're interested in. If you want to be, if you're talking about a multi-instrumentalist studio, if you want to be playing with other people, yeah, go there. Go to a place where multiple instruments are being taught and people are learning different instruments. If you strictly only want to learn about piano and voice, find someone who does both, right? If you want to learn just piano, find someone who does do maybe not just piano, but understands the piano as its own instrument. And if you're not sure, then I would definitely recommend like self learning for a bit, see what you want, because lessons can be expensive, and if you don't know what you want from them, you may end up feeling a little dissatisfied with them. So I would definitely start with self learning and understanding what you want first before you start putting more time into it than you can commit to, right?
Absolutely. And from my perspective or bias, just to share, I have done all of the above.
Yeah.
Especially for myself, who I run the studio, trying to learn what other curriculums were or develop my own, just as much knowledge as I could possibly gain. I've done sort of different things, but also I love to learn. Um, so that's part of it for me. But I've done the apps. I have taken from a traditional piano slash voice teacher. I will say I've taken some of the best voice lessons I've ever had from a guitar teacher. And that was just because their knowledge of harmony was so strong that when I went to sort of the choral world or even just duets, like my harmony understanding was so much stronger. And same with piano, just that what my teacher brought to me with theory and rhythm and just having two separate hands to do things. Like obviously in your voice, there's one voice. And in piano, there's two hands, but it sort of begged the question of like, okay, how could I copy that in my voice? How could I do two things at once with my one instrument? So I have just learned so much from other instrumentalists who didn't specialize in voice. Now, I would say I think I was able to sort of glean some of that information away because I had gone so deep in the voice that I could ask some of their more nuanced questions. But still, you're never going to not gain from someone if you go in with an open mind.
Another thing that I would just say maybe is do your best to internalize the ideas that you are being taught, right? Because I've been in both situations where I've just, taken in information and retained it and then regurgitated it. But if you internalize it and try and make it your own, then everything else is going to make sense if you start learning from other musicians or other people who play different instruments than you. If you have that like internal knowledge of it, I think that that can be super advantageous. So when you're learning, don't be afraid to like ask questions that are going to make these concepts more you friendly, if that makes sense. Like as you're learning, don't be afraid to, do your best to personalize the information.
Especially if you're paying for lessons at the end of the day, and every teacher has their own approach. So I don't want to knock anyone else's teaching style, but you are paying for a service. And so it's got to serve you. Now, some teachers will come in with the idea of this is what I offer. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Knowing what you offer is a good thing, but they're a little bit more traditional in that you follow a curriculum, you follow a method book. That's all fine. But you have to think about, is that what you want? Is it working for you? And I'll give a quick side note example here. We had a student who wanted to work with us the other day, and I am open to working with all students. That is my philosophy. But it became really apparent really quickly that we weren't the best studio to serve them because their goal was to have a more traditional lesson, to work out of a method book, they specifically wanted to work on classical music. They brought in like a 24 song aria book collection. And it's not that we don't teach classical music, but our studio philosophy is different than that. We try to gamify things, we et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into too much of our studio philosophy there, but it became really apparent that we wouldn't serve them best. So what I said was, you're welcome to work with us, but I want to make sure that you're going to have the best experience. And I think knowing that as a consumer is really important. Go in with the intention of, I want to get the best experience for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.